Hey everyone, Margarita here. I'm going to film this episode real quick on the amount that my bills have changed due to the ongoing crimes of my mother. So part of the reason for these crimes is all the jealousy and envy, long-term, everything I had been building from a very young age, how I managed to somehow survive each wipeout and then somehow survive being near death for so long and still dig my way out of where I am and still barely hang on to my house. What all of this has caused, especially with the kidnapping of my daughter in 2021 and the Brownstown Police Department and the Flat Rock Police Department being involved in all that, because they are directly involved. There's proof of all of this. There are witnesses and there's direct proof, and Charmaine is a direct witness as well. This can all be proven. So none of this is questionable. None of this is bullshit coming out my fucking ass. This is all facts. Everything that's happened, everything that's gone down, it had led to my Chapter 13 bankruptcy. It led to me being forced away from my home during the 2021 Ford gas bill. It led to me being forced to purchase the home in Ohio, which then led to the tenant being put in my home it was supposed to be up to 2 years. It turned into 18 months. Damage was significantly done after 12 months. And which led to the $100,000 plus in damage to my home, which then led to her throwing away the insurance checks, which would have changed everything, even though it wasn't enough to cover anything. They were just smaller checks. It would have changed everything. I would not have had to file bankruptcy. There was too many chaotic events and too many crimes that occurred, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. That led to my Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Now, due to the insurance claim being ongoing, it's still not situated 20 months in. It is being currently worked on. I did receive an email today. The ball is now in their court. Things are starting to flow so we can tie everything up. But the problem is it was stagnant for several months, and it was due to the fact that they as an insurance company, how they operate, just didn't want to pay what they were supposed to. And once they realized what they had gotten themselves involved in, after I explained everything else that had happened and what had led to the damage of the home, and how we were left in a life-threatening predicament with no treatment whatsoever, and we can't go without treatment, or the end result is I die. So I slowly suffer until I'll eventually die, and I was getting there. I was not too far away. I had gone too many months without treatment. I was very well aware of that. I eventually got somebody on the phone to listen after all the previous phone calls, and they'd had the medical documents for months. They immediately had to take action because they were about to be held liable for my death. Again, another straw that would break the very last camel's back. So they realized the position they were in. They ended up forwarding me the money. That way I could at least get my home chamber up and running and finish up the claim and get that rolling, because that also plays another role, because I'm also stuck without being able to sell the home for the proper amount, and I'm stuck not being able to generate money from the home either. So there's numerous problems here. They immediately started to take action once that happened a little over a month ago, and I don't believe there's going to be a further problem. But because they were stagnant for so long, and because I was so extremely injured for so long, and all of the previous wipeouts and crimes that had occurred, it led to me not being able to work anymore for the most part for quite some time, me slowly loading up with different particles and exposures, because the majority of last year I worked on my house, because I can only do so much. That was all I was doing last year, was working on my house. And it eventually led to no treatment for a significant period of time, which was starting to begin to lead to my death. And in order to come back from that, to be able to generate any money going forward, it takes quite a bit of time of daily treatments to jumpstart my system, to be in a functional place, to be able to begin to generate money again. Months it takes. So there was an issue with all that, and the amount of money not flowing from the homeowner's insurance to continue to either pay anything or get any of the work done, that it left me in a predicament where nothing was being paid in the Chapter 13 bankruptcy. So due to all that, another court date was filed, and now there's more legal fees involved in all of this from my attorney and the mortgage company's attorney. Now what has come out of all of this? Long term. So from just before the gas leak, the kidnapping of my daughter in 2021 by my mother, and the Brownstown Police Department and Flat Rock Police Department playing a role, and her inserting herself in the Ford gas leak, me getting forced from my home, What has now come out of all of this, and the result of everything, is my bills being double what they used to be before the bankruptcy. So my bills in this current home, without my other home included, have now doubled due to the jealousy, the envy, the long-term crimes, all these people and agencies playing a role. So now, here I am. I just had to sign new documents. This is another issue. These people are all responsible. My mother's directly responsible. The Brownstown Police Department's directly responsible. The Flat Rock Police Department's directly responsible for what has now come out of this and the disaster I'm now left with. So now I have to work at twice as fast of a pace in order to get things back in order to flow properly, to eventually get it all under control. Now, mind you, that is only temporary. That amount being paid is only temporary. It's only the length of the bankruptcy term. It's not forever. But it all has to be paid back and paid off due to the amount of assets I own. So in the end, that's still the better idea, the better deal. You wouldn't just walk away from everything you've built and have nothing when you have everything to cover everything. Because what's owed on the home is like less than half what it's worth. So now but it's still a term, a period, a couple of year period. It's still a problem because that amount of money should not be having to be paid. This is all due to all of these crimes, long term. This is the fallout. Everything in my life is fallout from each set of crimes. Fallout, all these lines of fallout. And it never gets situated. It just keeps on going. Now, if there's another hiccup along the way, it's either going to kill me or it's going to break me, which is eventually going to kill me. Because if I financially break, then I'm still dead no matter what. That's what nobody's comprehending. So in order to maintain keeping myself alive, keeping my son alive, and keeping able to produce income, the only way out is up and through everything I had already built and all the problems that were created due to the jealousy, the envy, and the crimes of all these people involved. So all these people are directly responsible for everything that has happened to me. Ford Motor Company, they're involved too. Because at no time should my hotel have ever been cut off for me to be forced home, to be living with my brain bleeding, with my son with his brain bleeding in and out of consciousness all that time, struggling to try to get to work when I can't even drive through where they flushed it to, while they're lying to everybody, lying to the whole public, everybody on the news about where the liquid gasoline was flushed to. Couldn't even get there, had to remove myself and go buy a home an hour south, even further than where my work was at the time, due to all that. And since then, there's been more crimes that have occurred, which has created hiccups and problems at the places I generated the most money from. So that's another issue. And those are activities that are involved in the crimes as well. Numerous different people are involved with all of that and how that even occurred in the first place. But at the root, Ford should have never been cutting off my hotel. And the only reason they did that is because they accepted my mother's delusional phone calls, believed everything she had said about my son and I never being injured, not having a severe condition, it not being life-threatening, and that was the reason our hotel was cut off and why we were forced to live with such high particles in our home. Not only that, they lied. It was not EPA's level of all clear outside or in my home for, because they don't count the outside. They only count inside the home. It wasn't even EPA's level until I believe it was like 6 months down the line, once the fishermen had found the particles floating in the river. But it still wasn't all clear outside EPA's level or less than that. It still wasn't for well over a year for sure. From that point forward, I was not driving that route up here. When I did come, once my dad was injured that following January, I was further west where I was away from the waterways and where it was coming from and where it was being flushed to. So that's a little different, but all of these people are involved. The hotel should have never been cut off. It was all due to the delusional phone calls, Ford really believing that that was all real. At one point, I know they were sending me emails, and I was so sick and so injured in such an extreme fight for my life with the gas particles and being kicked out of hotel to hotel. And I was receiving phone calls and extreme harassment from some Christine chick who was in charge of the Ford leak here in Flat Rock at the Flat Rock Ford. She was screaming my mother's delusions at me over the phone. And I didn't even have the ability to check my email. There was numerous times I was struggling to make it to the treatment center west from Ohio, west out in Brighton, to at least get to the treatment center to try to remove some of what was overloading in my system, because I already knew I was near death. Here I was receiving these emails. I never even found this for months. It was like way down the line. I found these emails. I would have never been able to respond to any of these emails. They wanted me to upload documents of my medical condition. It wasn't possible to do in that moment. I wasn't even aware I was receiving emails. There was no way to even check for it. It was that extreme of an emergency. And here they were acting all nonchalant, like I'm just making it up because that's what she was telling them. But no, we were in an extreme fight for our lives. We were running for our lives. We were literally barely keeping ourselves alive. At the same time, my daughter was being manipulated and brainwashed by my mother, using the police departments to help her. And it was creating a problem with generating the amount of money I should have been generating during that time period. It shouldn't have slowed down to where it did during those few months. It shouldn't have been slowed down like that. It should have continued on the way it always did. But due to the manipulation and kidnapping of my daughter, it made it so I couldn't get to work properly. I just had to keep my son and I put where we were down in Ohio in the hotel initially when that all began. Now, once I was forced home to live in the particles with our brains bleeding, it was really bad for those 6 months. Then here I was forced to, in order to keep us alive, I had to get to work. I would just be in and out of consciousness driving, and I'd have to pull over and fall in and out of consciousness. And same with the treatment center. They flushed it so far, it was way north as well. And in order to keep us alive, I had to pay for treatment out of pocket to keep us alive during all this while staying in the home. I can't really say for the outside air, they don't count the outside air as being all clear or not all clear. They don't even count it, which doesn't make sense because you still have to breathe it to get from point A to point B. So there was a problem there as well. It was all the measures are false. Kind of the way they're taught to check for carbon monoxide poisoning, the measures are false. Same concept, but it's all skewed to fit their agenda and help them be able to get away with stuff like this. But once I was forced home, I did have the lady who worked for me came back, and she would babysit while this was going on. And then we did end up finishing up the house to put the tenant in it for that short period of time. So she was helping me do both. She just stayed here while I went to work during those times, but it was imperative that I continue to pay for treatment or we still weren't going to live. And we couldn't run our home oxygen chamber during that time either because the amount of gas particles that were in the home, it would have broke the concentrator anyway. And there was a couple times we were forced to try to run it because it was that urgent, and that could have played a role in like long term. Once it was damaged in the water damage, it still could have played a role long term in why it was damaged in the first place. There's no real way to tell. But that is the result of everything that has gone on to the current day. The documents that I just signed today, it's May 20-something, 2025. The result of all these ongoing crimes and the fallout, and it all piggybacking off each other and keep it all going and keep it all going and keep me running and running and running and running and running so I never get anywhere. So you keep wiping me out and committing crimes and everybody's involved. All these people are involved. And here a couple months ago, I was near death. So that is the result. I just had to make a video about it because everything is so chaotic and extreme. I just had to catch it on film, what the outcome of all of that is. And it does have to be maintained going forward or we will lose everything eventually. It's going to lead to that. So, there's numerous issues here. As long as there's no more hiccups and nobody else creates a problem, it should be able to flow. But all it's going to take is one little problem, and the whole thing's going to fall down. The whole house of cards falls. It's already on shaky ground from the decades of ongoing crimes and what everybody's caused. So, just had to share that with everybody. It's bullshit. I'm not going to share the number, but I am going to say it is definitely exactly twice of what I used to pay to live in this home and have everything that I have, and everything as a whole. The number has now doubled temporarily. For about 3 years now. It's going to go on for about 3 years. Unless for some reason I am properly compensated in one direction or another to get everything back in line, that's the way it's going to stay until that three-year period is up. So it's all bullshit. These are part of the RICO crimes. All these individuals are involved. Just had to share all that with everyone. I'll be back with more. Thanks. Bye.